Marketer of the Day, episode 517. Live the ideal work week. Take personal inventory. Accomplish more. Set yourself up for success and use the best tools with Cailen Ascher.
Hey everyone, we're so glad that you came back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. If you're curious about the 3-day work week, if you want to accomplish more in less time, then you want to sit up and pay extra close attention to today's episode. We're talking with Cailen Ascher, and Cailen helps women entrepreneurs design a life they love and begin living it now. And Cailen has built her 6-figure business working just 3 days a week, and her signature program is called the 3-day work week, and it teaches entrepreneurial women how to create their ideal schedule where they can successfully work less, make more, and live better. And we're going to hear all about it. And you can find out about Cailen at CalenAscher.com. So Cailen, glad to be talking to you.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you on. So what's on your mind these days?
Yeah, so as I was just saying to you, as we were jumping on, it's a Monday, which I don't typically work. So I'm hoping that brings my my business game into our conversation today, because my work week is those 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And it's what has really transformed my business. Prior to that, I was working, typical 40 plus hours a week on my business and really struggling to get by. And as I prioritized and really got clear on my working hours and the best things to do during those working hours, my business took off. And actually, I wound up working less time, and I'm working those 3 days now. So it's been a really remarkable journey for me. And now that I've kind of identified the process and figured it out, I love helping women and entrepreneurs in general. We do have a few amazing men in our community too, move in that direction of their ideal work week.
Well, great. So, it sounds like you 80-20 things, and I can definitely relate to, especially early on, of having burning the candle at both ends and feeling like I needed to be awake all the time and needed to be at the computer all the time. And I remember when I was young, I'd do the all-nighters, and I would try all the silly stuff like the polyphasic sleep, where you sleep like every 4 hours, and all these crazy things. And I was ignoring some of those things that you mentioned, the basics, right? The setting priorities, setting real working hours, and then seeing how those two things fit together, so that way you can say, well, I'm going to be smart about my working hours, and I'm going to be smart about my tasks, but I'm going to make sure to apply those at the same time, right? Not just sitting at the computer and doing things that aren't important. You actually have a plan and stick to your plan. And so I'm curious, was it always like this? Did you always have everything together? Are you naturally an organized person, or was there somewhat of like a growing pain process for you?
I do have to say I am an organized person by nature. I do lean in that direction. But prior to my 3-day work week, I realized that we kind of fill up whatever available time and space we have. It's like if you move into a bigger house, suddenly it's filled with stuff that you didn't have in your previous smaller house or smaller apartment. We just kind of expand to whatever we have. So yes, I was organized, but I kind of spread out everything I was doing into more hours. So I wasn't being more efficient or productive until I put some boundaries around my time. And I started outsourcing and optimizing things. And I realized that in order to be my most successful self, I really needed to start acting like a CEO in my business instead of sort of an entrepreneurial hobbyist figuring it out as I went. I went in with a plan, and that really maximized and capitalized on my organized nature, and it took off from there. And even if people listening feel like they aren't the most organized person, we can always move in the direction of being a little bit more organized, a little more strategic, and putting systems in place that really help us, especially if we're not organized. And so this process that I love talking about of figuring out your ideal work week and living into it really meets you where you're at, wherever you are on that spectrum of, kind of being that organized person, kind of uptight like I was about my business. But it helps you wherever you are, get you more in alignment with where you want to go.
Well, there's a lot of great stuff to unpack in there. And yeah, I like everything that you said as far as your mindset is to, here's all the stuff that I want to do, but instead of allowing myself to go in without a plan, allow myself to try to do it all myself or do all these things that might get be off track in my master plan. Instead, I say, well, here are my boundaries. Here's what I'm going to do and not going to do. Mm-hmm. And then in that area, things that you don't want to do, you outsource, you optimize, you have those systems. And what really got my attention there about your answer was that you were saying that, well, you don't have to just throw out everything that you have going on. You can just slowly move into the direction of being more organized. So that way it's not as much of a painful process. And so how did you draw those boundaries? How did you begin to change things up and decide what you had time for and what you didn't have time for?
Yeah. So the thing that really helped me was that I became a mom. My husband and I were expecting our first child. And so that really snapped things into focus for me. After taking a few months off after my first daughter was born, it was like, if I'm going to be working and doing something, I really want to do it in a way that feels good to me and gives me enough time and energy to be with this new little person that just arrived. So that was a real catalyst in my own life. I know for other women that I've worked with, some of them are trying to fit in their business around a full-time job or around school hours if their kids are a little bit older, or maybe they've just left their job and they're feeling like they're filling up their hours with tons of stuff but not really being the most efficient version of themselves and moving their business forward. And so it's really important, like you were saying, to figure out where you're starting from. And I love doing a time inventory for this process. Just simply take a look at how and where you're spending your time. Maybe set an hourly timer for a few working days and see where you are focusing your time, attention, your energy, and also maybe see if you even like the stuff that you're doing. Because sometimes we're spending so much time and energy, trying to figure out the back coding of our website, when if we just outsource that for a couple $100, or even maybe bartered with somebody, and we free up that time for a new client doing what we love, it's a win-win all around. And so you first need to look at what you're doing, collect data around that before you can think about how you want to change it.
And so how does that data collection work? You just keep somewhat of a journal and write down this time to this time I did that task. What does that data collection look like?
Yeah, for me, the first time I did that process, it was really simple. I just had a notebook next to my computer and I set an hourly timer on my phone. And every time it pinged, I took a couple seconds to just jot down what I did during that previous hour. And the clincher here is to try not to change the way you're currently working. Just be a witness to it. Just be curious about it. Because once you see that, oh my gosh, during that previous hour, I was in my email and on Facebook, and then I was working on this project, and then I thought about that, and I called this person, you're going to want to try to start changing things. and it's fine. You'll kind of naturally start improving the way you're spending your time automatically. But be as honest with yourself as possible, because once you see that and you witness that without judgment, this isn't about beating yourselves up about what you're currently doing, then you're able to approach it from the standpoint of, okay, how can I make this a better version of what I want my work week to look like, my working hours to look like right now, that feels like an incremental upgrade? Because a lot of us, we move through life trying to make these quantum leaps. We go from having no business to wanting a 6-figure business. We go from, not exercising at all to being able to exercise 5 days a week or run a marathon. We have these really, really lofty goals. But what I love about the process that I teach within 3-Day Workweek is, yes, let's define what that ideal looks like for you. Maybe it's a 3-day work week, but if you're currently working 80 hours a week, that's not a healthy step. Maybe we can get you your weekends back. Maybe we can get you ending your workday at 5 or 6 o'clock so you have a sit-down dinner with your family. Let's see what small steps we can make that moves you in the direction of that ideal.
Interesting. And I imagine that, so you're mentioning here that, by having that notebook and every hour, write down what you're doing for that hour will allow you to see all kinds of crazy stuff, right? See where the time wasters are, see how you spend your day, see if your days are too long or if your weeks are too long, and things like that. And what I'm hearing, or like what I've noticed, like when I do these kinds of things, is that my brain totally plays tricks on me. I'll always think that I only spent an hour on something. Turns out I spent 3 hours on it. I thought I spent all day on something. Turns out I only spent 20 minutes on that thing. Or I think that, there's this project that I need to get to a couple of days out of the week, and I look at it and it's like I hadn't even touched it in a month. So I imagine that. So you said that there's that effect of of just you might be a little bit extra motivated just right off the bat just by seeing where things at. But do you notice things like that with yourself? Like when you actually measure it, what you think in your head is true is way off compared to the facts.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot. And I think another thing that happens for myself and a lot of other people that I've worked with is that we think we're going to feel more accomplished at the end of the day when we've gotten 15 things done. And so we put this lofty list on our calendar for the week or the month or the day, thinking, oh, when I get these 15, 20 things done, I'll feel really accomplished. But then we move through our day kind of ping-ponging between all of them and doing 5 minutes here on that and 15 minutes here on that. And we get to the day and we felt like we had a busy day, but we don't feel productive or accomplished or like we got anything worthwhile done. And what I've come to realize is I feel so much more satisfied and so much more successful when I can get to the end of my day and say, I accomplished this. I got this thing from start to finish. And it might just be one hefty piece of a bigger project, but I got, 5 sales emails written for that funnel, or I got 3 interviews for that new interview series completed that I'm rolling out. When I'm focused in a clearer direction for my day, even if I've only done 1 or 2 things, I feel so much more productive. I think that's kind of, playing into what you were saying is that your mind plays tricks on you. It's like, oh, you think you're going to feel better or have gotten more done when you do more things. But in actuality, we're so much more productive when we're more focused in the way we're spending our time and energy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You're going for quantity, or you're going for quality, not quantity.
Exactly.
It's easy to check off and say, I like 20 posts on Twitter, but who cares about all that when even if you got, 2 or 3 things that are done that move you towards your goal, that's what's more important. And so ever since we began talking here a few minutes ago, when we mentioned that 3-day work week, now I'm really curious about what your 3-day work week looks like. So is that a thing that you're able to reveal here, or is that a secret, or what does that look like?
No, I'm happy to share as much as possible. And if people are interested in seeing a visual template, there is a free download on my website, CailenAscher.com, which has a link to that. But for me, my 3-day work week, as I mentioned earlier, it's Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And then the next question is like, how many hours are you working? Are you jamming, 50 hours somehow into those 3 days? No, I work from about 9:30 a.m. till 4 or 4:30 p.m. I try to take a solid at least half-hour lunch break each of those days. And it feels, for me, really healthy and balanced because I have 2 small kids. I have a 3.5-year-old and a 1-year-old, 2 little girls. And so I love having my 4-day weekends with them. So 3-day work week and the concept behind it really is born out of the hope that everyone considers what is the ideal for them in their life, in their business, where they are on their journey. And it's going to look different for each and every one of us. And so for me, I like having my morning time available for yoga and meditation and family time. And so that's why I'm not beginning my workday till 9:30, so that I have that spaciousness. My morning time is my best, most productive time. So from 9:30, 10 o'clock until I break for lunch around 1, I'm normally focusing on my most important project of the moment. And then the afternoon can be for calls or catch up or interviews if I'm doing them for my podcast, things like that allow me to maybe be interacting with other people to get the energy up. Because as with most people, or at least most parents, your energy starts to wane in the late afternoon. And then wrapping up by 4:30 or so allows me to get back downstairs because I'm upstairs in my office for the day and cook dinner for my family, be with my girls and my husband. And that's what feels good for me, having that really ideal work-life harmony is top priority for me. And I have no doubt when my girls are older and go to school, I'll probably reconfigure my working hours so it fits better with the school schedule so that I'm able to work during the hours they're away and be available for the hours that they have activities or hopefully want to spend time with me and my husband too.
That's really cool. So it's not like there's one way and only one way for people to have their 3-day work week. It's you set it up the way that you want, and that can change over time depending on what else you have going on. And so some of those details in there, like of like you said, you like to start in the morning, and you like to get those important tasks figured out, and then like the calls and things like that in the afternoon. Like what sort of decisions where did you have to make in order to kind of come to that? Like, did you say like, well, I could start at like 4 or 5 a.m. or I could start later, or like, is there any time when like you would want to work like longer or shorter, or like how did you kind of arrive at where you're at now?
Yeah, so it was a balance of getting to know myself and the best hours I have, and also figuring out logistical things like when can we have childcare and what makes sense in that regard, and some things I need to take care of as a mom and doing things for the family. And so it was sort of a hybrid of those two things. I would say for other people considering as they're trying to step into their work week, doing that time inventory is going to be really helpful because you're going to instantly see areas you can kind of batch your tasks together or cut out things that are really just time wasters. And as you do that, you're going to realize that you only need X amount of hours for your work. You don't need maybe the 40, 50, 60 hours you thought you needed. Maybe you can be really super efficient in 30 hours or in 15 hours or whatever that is for you. If you're, kind of maybe doing this outside of a full-time gig or trying to fit it in around other projects. So it's really key to honor what's best for you. Like if you are a night owl and your best creative ideas come to you after 11 p.m. when most of the world is going to bed, honor that and figure out a way to capitalize on that for you. And maybe that means not pushing yourself to get up super early at 7 a.m., but giving yourself some flex time until 9 a.m. because you know that if you get 2-3 good hours in the evening, that's better than having a whole day worth of work. So this process of figuring out your best working hours, figuring out your ideal work week is really a journey into getting to know yourself better and not being so tied to what it looks like for everybody else.
That's really cool. Yeah, so you can figure out yourself as you go, so that way you can set what makes a lot of sense for you. I love it. And so something that's come up a couple of times is this idea of like the work-life balance. And one of the best things that I did was having like my own home office and having the door closed. And I don't have kids, but when my wife first moved in here a couple of years ago, I had to, like set some boundaries and be like, yeah, when I'm in my office and the door's closed, like I'm doing my thing. I might be recording a podcast. It's focusing time. And but I've noticed that like some of my married friends who work from home have difficulties in, especially the ones with kids, they have difficulties in like putting their foot down and setting those boundaries. So was there any difficulties with you, any kind of transitions into having those boundaries or getting that focused or having the office hours and still dealing with the family stuff at home?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, when I was first stepping into my 3-day work week, I was working downstairs in our home and I had kind of taken over the dining room and I felt like I needed to be present, even though we had childcare there for my daughter. It was in-home childcare and I felt like I still needed to be available. And I realized it was just like a guilt thing, like a parental guilt thing. And if I really wanted to make my business into what I envisioned it could be, I needed to honor that vision and act more professionally. And so I moved my work upstairs into one of our spare bedrooms. Like you, I shut the door, and when the door is shut, they know that mom's at work, same as if I had gotten in the car and left. And so we do our best to maintain that. And I also, for myself, have made my office into a sort of sanctuary. So it's a place I love to be, and it feels very me. It's filled with art that I love, and I have, a beautiful lamp and a desk and things that really feel like me. So even though sometimes I might feel like, oh, I would love to be here, downstairs and be playing with my girls or go on that little trip that their grandma's taking them on, I realize that when I step into my space, I'm in my zone, and I need it as much for me as they need to see me have my own thing. And that's something that's really helped me overcome sort of the mom guilt around it all. I know that I'm the best possible mom and role model for them by showing them that I have these boundaries and I have this vision for not just myself, but all of us. And in order to pursue that, I need time, space, and energy to do that.
That's really great, especially it's just as much for you as it is for them, and your office is your own kind of private sanctuary. And you're making me think back to, because I went full time about 9 years ago, and the first day that it was just me all on my own. My girlfriend at the time saw me getting ready, and she's like, "Well, why are you putting your day clothes on? You should be working in your pajamas. You're retired." And I told her at the time, if I just lounge around in a bathrobe all day, then I'm not going to be taking it seriously, right? I'm not going to be fully awake. I'm just going to be not really completely there. So that's reminding me of when you're talking about acting professionally and having those boundaries and having your workspace. You have to, in a lot of ways, treat it like a job where it's up to you now, though. So it's like I remember just thinking, oh, when I finally go full time, I'm just going to be lounging around all the time. And you can do that when it's time for play, but when it's time to actually get stuff done, you have to take it seriously. So this is great stuff.
Yeah, it's so funny how we start our businesses because we have this passion, this drive. We want to maybe escape the corporate structure, and then maybe after a little time on your own, you realize I just wish someone would tell me what to do. I just wish someone would tell me what I needed to focus on, because it can feel so overwhelming. And that's what I love about giving yourself some boundaries and giving yourself some structure and having those rituals that make you feel like a professional. Is it gets you in alignment with where you want to be heading. You want to be that successful, amazing, kick-ass business person. And until you start showing up like that from the get-go, it's not going to fall into place. And so I think it's really important that you set yourself up for success from the beginning, and bringing some intentional design to what you're building, and not just the business itself, but the way in which you're building it. What does your work week look like? What do your working hours look like? How do, like you were saying, how do you dress? What does your office look like? How can all of these things trigger you to be your best self? Then it's a whole different ballgame. You're entering from a place of knowing you're going to succeed instead of hoping you're going to succeed.
So with all the stuff that they have going on now, is there anything that you wished that you'd known going in that would maybe have saved you a lot of trial and error as far as getting more stuff done and showing up and all this stuff we're talking about?
I think it's really important to remember that the journey that you're on has to align with the destination where you want to go. And so if you're currently feeling overwhelmed and stressed out and burning the candle at both ends, but you're hoping to get to a place someday where it's feeling easy and joyful and abundant and fulfilling and super successful, they're not going to line up. You have to build in now the things that are going to make you feel abundant and successful and joyful, and set you on the right path for getting to that destination that you're desiring.
I love it. That makes perfect sense. And you're making me rethink a lot of things. And I think I might need to even redecorate my office while I'm at it. So you've kind of woken us up to a lot of these possibilities, a lot of things we should be keeping in mind. And I'm sure that a lot of people out there have their interest piqued as far as your women group and this productivity stuff. So where can people find out about you, and what do you have to offer us today?
Sure. Yeah. So the best place to find me and more about 3-Day Workweek and all the work I do in the realm of coaching and the products and programs I offer would be over at CailenAscher.com, CailenAscher. And right there on the homepage, you'll be greeted by the 3-Day Workweek schedule. It's a free download. It gives you a look at my schedule hour by hour on my 3-Day Workweek. It also gives you some really helpful tips and strategies to move in the direction of being more productive, more efficient in your business. And it also has a fillable template if you're interested in designing your own ideal work week that you can use to create.
Great. Well, sounds like you thought of everything. So everyone needs to go right there right now, CailenAscher.com to claim that workbook, to see what you need to do to get yourself more productive. And so, yeah, there's nothing else left to do but to go there right now. That's CailenAscher.com to see what she has for you. So thanks so much, Cailen, for stopping by and for being real with us and telling us what we need to know about living life with purpose and having a business with a plan and taking the control back of our day. So lots of great stuff. I'm glad that you came by and shared it with us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Please follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Robert Plank. That's twitter.com/Robert Plank. And while you're adding me, also like Marketer of the Day on Facebook by going to facebook.com/Robert Plank Show.